Undercovered. Because some stories just need to be told. Others told more. A few told more fully. Or perhaps in a different way. If not in another light. Welcome to Conversation about some of the stuff that's just undercovered.
First of all, thank you very much for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right. I am excited because what do you call this? I think it's an interesting subject.
Yeah.
And it's very timely. Secondly, I will confess that I am also excited because your name crops up from childhood, well, not teenage memories. I actually saw bits of your conversation with Jet Pangan.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's been a long time, and then out of the blue, he messaged me if he could interview me.
Hang on. Up to what point were you involved with him? Up to what?
Well, from the beginning till
I know.
Till 94, 95.
Which was
Well, we started 85, so it's about 10 years.
the last album that it was maybe Little Paradise.
No, more pa, mga bangka, after bangka.
After Bangka. All right. How did you get involved in what you're doing right now, itong acoustic?
Okay, it started out this way. You know nga, if the interview, I got into sound. I became the recording and sound front of house engineer for the Dawn. I took up a 3-month course in the States around 87. I studied at the LA Recording Workshop. It's a school in LA, and they offered recording engineering courses, a course in recording engineering. Wala pang masyadong recording engineering schools noon. It was either that or Full Sail Audio that had recording courses. Now, madami na.
I was fascinated by it when I saw that article, which I shared with you, no? Mm-hmm. And I said, wow. Okay, first of all, the reason why I came across your name again, outside of the context of the Dawn, was I did some volunteer work with San Sebastian Basilica. You were proposing a project yata where you would record, or your name was mentioned along that line. I said, wow, that's amazing. Because I was always batting for the idea that let's get more people to see this in another context.
Yes, it's reaching out. No, it's reaching out. It's a lot of music. Remember, music, from the Middle Ages up to a certain point was basically just church music. That was the popular music of the time. So
exactly. So that's how I came across your name. So that's why when I came across this article, I didn't know too many people who were really gurus. I want to ask from the professionals, and at the same time I wanted to get this idea. Na can we talk basics first?
Yeah,
principles first, so that people who have people who are on a budget, they'll at least appreciate these are the things which I have to do, and as it increases, or if there's more money coming in, then we probably can scale up. But let's first of all agree what are the basics first.
This is Undercovered, the podcast with Bing Kimpo.
How does sound travel from point A to point B? Meaning, say whether it's recorded church music played off a CD, of an MP3 player or a phone, to the person's ear. How does that, or from a guitar player for that matter, how does it travel from source to listener?
Okay, good question. First of all, I want to put a disclaimer. I am not a guru. I don't consider myself knowledgeable. The more that the principle that I know is that the more you know you do not know. So
fair
I
point.
don't,
Fair
I
point.
don't, I do not say I know everything, and things I may say today may be contradicted by someone who knows better, because
Okay,
there
fair
will
point.
always be someone that knows better than you. Okay.
Yes.
So, okay, how does sound travel? So there, no, we start with the physics. This is physics. This
Okay.
is physics. This is the movement of molecules in the, which is air. The meat, it travels the, well, we hear sound through the air, but you dip your head underwater and there's a speaker playing in the swimming pool, you'll hear that because it travels through water. It goes through the molecules. What? Refraction, and it's an ebb and flow. It compresses and releases and compresses and releases. That's how sound comes out. Meaning, if I speak to you now, what happens? Imagine me throwing a pebble in the middle of a lake and the waves start going out. Imagine that 360 degrees. That's how sound travels. Basically, the wave, it's a waveform. Okay,
Ibig
that
sabihin
wave will hit a wall. And if you see, it will go around that wall or it will stop in that wall. Can you see it? Can you see it? The wave is going like that, and then it hits a boat, the side of a boat. It stops. Some of it stops, but some goes around it. See, so imagine that inside a room. That becomes acoustics now.
So in a sense, what we're experiencing, tama ba ako, Martin? What we're experiencing is actually the interaction of those waves with our surfaces.
Yes.
Tama ba yun?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Surfaces anywhere from the stone wall, the pew, the body of the worshiper. All are distinctly different. If it hits a stone wall, it will bounce back more. If it hits the body, which is more absorptive, some of the sound will be absorbed. Get what I mean?
Okay, all right.
It's like throwing a ball now at the wall. If you throw it against the wall, a stone wall, the ball will bounce back to you. If you throw a ball to a body, it won't come back to you, as it will bounce back, but not as strong as if you threw it to the wall.
Okay, Mart, itong dinidescribe mo sa akin, this is essentially, itong acoustics to, di ba?
Well, that's a part of acoustics, yes.
Okay.
This is chapter 1, paragraph 1.
All right. O sige. Kasi what we're trying to arrive at here is really, how can we help improve? Kung ang reklamo kasi ng mga tao is that marami daw sa kanila, walang number one reklamo daw ng mga churchgoers is that pangit daw yung sound system. Pero siguro, di ba, let's appreciate it first. Before we go to the sound system, it's a place. So sige, you were saying that if it's stone, it bounces back, di ba?
Yes.
If it's human being, tao, it'll tend to be absorbed. So,
Yeah.
I guess that leads us to the next question then. What are some of the factors or services, or what are some of the things in place in an area, in a church, that can affect yung quality ng sound muna? Let's just say, wala mo ng mics, tao sa tao, if we're just conversing, tayong dalawa, in a church.
Okay, like this. You mentioned Manila Cathedral. Manila Cathedral was there even during the Spanish time.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this huge area, huge volume. So you have a highly reverberant place. That's why music sounds glorious, and it's a big cathedral. So during that time, during the Spanish time, were there cars, were there tricycles, were there jeepneys moving around outside? Wala. So the first qualification comes in, it's quiet.
All right.
So you can have your glorious music, but when the music stops, it will be very silent. Imagine the effect to the worshiper. Now,
Okay. All right. All right.
okay,
Yes.
okay. So, yeah, that's why during the 1500s, the Spanish edict from King Philip was, this is the way to build a Spanish community. You have your commercial houses, you have your government buildings, and on top, to look glorious, and you always look up to it, will be a church. That's why, and then the plaza is in the middle.
The reducciones.
Yun. Okay, so that was the edict from Spain. So if you notice, all of our old churches are built that way. So mataas siya. You have to go and walk up to get to the church. So at once it's quiet. But even the Caritela or Calesa is running in the bottom. Okay, so there's a distance. So quiet siya. So biglang you have the music inside. You will have an organ, you will have a choir. Ayan na siya. So glorious music. So when it's time for the homily or the sermon, it becomes very quiet. That a lot of people do not understand. They will build a church right beside an LRT station, and they say, bakit ganito?
Bakit maingay?
Bakit maingay? Doon pa lang, kasi gagastos ka na. Bibili ka na you'll have to double up on your sound system to make it stronger, to overcome the noise from outside. And everybody's just so focused on making the church look good inside. The acoustics of the church inside, without taking into consideration the environment outside the church. You should start there.
All right. Fair point.
Okay? Because there's two kinds of architectural acoustics. There's the sound coming in and out of the building, and the sound within the building, which are two totally different requirements. Meaning, I want to stop the sound from the jeep or the tricycle na maingay. Iba ang requirement nun sa absorbing the highly reverberant sound inside. Meaning, I cannot hear the priest when he gives his homily because it's too reverberant. So the requirements for sound in and out is different from the requirements from absorbing the sound. Like I said, to stop the sound, you need that wall. To absorb the sound, you need that human body. Two different things. Okay. While the local supplier will say, sir, acoustic material to. Okay na yan. It's not it's proper application in the proper of the proper material in the proper place. Yeah.
Okay. So, given that, ang consideration mo syempre will be siguro, like you said, place, context first, di ba? So, where is it located? Kung talaga maingay, minus 10,000 points ka na kasi talagang maingay talaga dyan. You have to work much harder, and your job probably isn't to trap sound inside, but probably even outside pa lang di ba?
Correct. From outside, from coming in. That's why, first of all, if you're going to build a new church, you have to do an environmental study. When I have my mass in the morning on a Sunday, ay may dumadaan pala na LRT every 5 minutes. Ganito kaingay. Anong gagawin ko ngayon?
Talo ka. Okay. I'm reminded of itong mga Greek amphitheater, di ba? Na bakit yung panahon, nung unang panahon, you would be able to have, let's say, an emperor address an entire Colosseum, and yet wala naman silang mic nun. What did they do right in those times? Because they did that before in history. we could be borrowing something. Ano yung mga elemento that we're forgetting right now because we're so spoiled with all of these microphones and speakers and whatnot?
Okay, Greek amphitheater. First of all, the performers were taught to project, which a lot of people that stand in front of the mic nowadays don't really know anymore. Okay, now acoustically, again we go back. Look at the amphitheaters. They weren't really near the city or in the busiest part of the city. They were quiet again. Walang masyadong kalaban na tunog. Okay, it would normally have a solid back wall that would help project the sound in a particular way. You have a fan curved and step, all hard materials which reflect and point the sound. So you have something like this. It's like going like that.
Oh, except that instead of doing this way yourself, it's the whole building doing it for you.
It's the whole structure. It's the whole structure.
Okay.
They knew what they were doing. And they adapted, again, they adapted the place, they adapted how they spoke to that time. Let me go to church, to the church, no? If you study acoustics of the churches, the most significant ones were the churches and cathedrals in the Middle Ages. That's when they started building these high and large cathedrals, no? And like the recently burned Notre Dame Cathedral, no? And many older ones. So these were stone structures, very tall. The volume was very large, so it's highly reverberant. How did they deal with it? You asked me that question before. How did they deal with it? First is, if you look at it, during the Middle Ages, most of the Mass was said in Latin. The spoken word was said in Latin. And in the Middle Ages, the worshippers did not know Latin, so they didn't care. Because the priests were the only ones that understood it. So they didn't need to be heard that well. So
that wasn't quite the answer that I was hoping to hear, but hey, you got me there.
What was more important then?
The music.
More important than the music. So
Yes.
how did you deal with the music? You had monophony, meaning one note at a time, which basically is the Gregorian chant. So the meter was very slow, one note at a time. So it gave time for the people to understand and then die. And then the next chant comes out and die out. That's why it was very metered. So the problem naman there is that you cannot get a lot through because it's too long. So what happened? They started developing ways to put two notes on top of each other, wherein since they are on a different level, a different frequency, your ear can now figure out more. Instead of one word that just goes da 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 da, you have a da 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 da, and you have a da 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 da. Then you started developing polyphonic music.
Am I gonna ask? These are essentially chords.
Already, chords na. You already imagine your Gregorian, then Renaissance. You have Bach. You have more complex music, but they were able to separate the notes. This developed over hundreds of years. And another way they got through to it is that instead of speaking the spoken word, they sang it, which was easier. to be understood. That's why you have a lot of sing-song in the old church, in the old masses, pre-Vatican I, pre-Vatican II, I'm sorry.
Actually, I was just hang on. When was the last time that I okay, the last service that I attended on TV rather, I was watching at the Vatican. I think hang on a minute, if I'm mistaken, this was when the first of the rosaries to the rosaries to end the pandemic. Okay, that started off at the Vatican, and there was singing there, and iba yung tunog inside an old church like that.
Oh, well, that's it. That's the internal volume. That's why you sound good inside the bathroom when you're singing.
Well, thank you very much.
because of the hard surfaces that reverberates. So it doubles up, it covers up for your inflections.
All right. Actually, may isa pa akong napuntahan, Martin, na isang old house, relatively old house dito sa Quezon City. And then, it was a 50s, if I'm mistaken, a 50s house. The design was such na meron siyang parang parlor sa sala na, and I could see it right in that same room where the piano was. And that's where, they would siguro entertain people before.
Yeah.
Yung kanyang roof was domed.
Yeah. See, that's to focus the sound to that certain area only. If you go to the old mosques, you will find many of that. Because mosques are different from our cathedrals. Mosques have their little spaces, but the imam's voices will just reach throughout.
Okay, sige. Great points right now. So what we're learning is that design affects, two things. One is that as much as possible, get rid of the noise from outside.
Yes.
Diba? Okay, so let's start from that. Granting na wala naman silang Martin Galan na nag-advise sa kanila noon, nandiyan na. Eh nagkataon, alam mo naman, lalo-lalo sa mga maliliit na lugar, things will be built around the church, di ba?
Yes.
Or flat, siyempre ilalagay dyan sa na-donate ng isang tao yung lupa. So no choice. Nandun ka, maraming tricycle, and of course people come by. Yun, traffic, noise, and all of that. Common siguro sa maraming munisipyo around the country. Now, yung first problem na yan, noise, external noise outside of the church itself. How do you lessen that noise from outside from coming in? Anong tricks or diba, anong hacks
I will tell you one thing. The principle in acoustics is mass law. Mass law applies in stopping sound. Again, we're going to physics. Mass law applies. The thicker, the heavier the object, it will stop the sound. Just that.
Okay. So, in short, kung talagang maingay sa ano mo, put up, alam ko na, a wall, or if not, di ba, maglagay ka ng these are the 10 commandments, huge slab of stone.
Or talk to the mayor and make sure that the tambuchos of the tricycles and the jeeps are to specification.
All right. Okay. Sige. All right. So first of all, basta make sure that you're able to deal with the sound from outside muna. So the first thing is yun, traffic, enforce the law. Pero kung talaga nandiyan na yan, then make sure that you've got dense material outside, 'di ba?
Put it
bato, whatever,
far away. Put it far away from the noise source. Meaning, if your lot is a little bit bigger, dun mo sa loob ilagay. Further away from the road.
Dun sa pinto na mismo ng simbahan halos, parang gano'n, closer.
Yung kung sabi natin malaki yung lote, and then there's a school school in
Well,
front.
the usual,
Put
the
it behind
usual.
the school. Yeah, put it behind the school. Para may buffer muna.
Okay,
May,
okay.
may pang sangga ng tunog.
Okay. All right. O, sige, so, basta, rule number 1, deaden the noise coming from outside muna. Yun ang number 1. Kasi talagang, once it gets in, mahirap na yan.
Oh.
Di ba? Okay.
Before, I would remember na my father telling me, wag bubusina kasi sa tapat tayo ng simbahan.
Exactly. Yeah,
I don't think
exactly.
anybody does that now.
Yep. Oo, meron pa nga nag-iiwan ng aircon habang ano eh. Anyway, sige. Okay, once you're inside naman, yung sound inside, anong mga tips and tricks natin for, 'di ba, for helping the acoustics along inside the church naman? What can be done?
Okay, before you even start with tips and tricks, is 1, establish what kind of church do you have. Do you have a cathedral? Do you have a small, intimate chapel? Or if, and then there's the Episcopalian type of worship house where there's modern music. And then there's the concert hall type.
Okay, all right.
So what kind of church do you have? What house of worship do you have?
Interesting. Sige, take us through that. Sige. Anong they obviously, you mentioned them because they obviously have different requirements.
Yes, that's
Go
why.
ahead.
So there's no one silver bullet for any house of worship. Even if you say I'm going to build exactly the same cathedral or the same chapel that I did, I'll copy na lang and cookie cutter it all over. But no, even within, we did the De La Salle University chapel, the main chapel, and we interviewed the old brothers, the American brothers that came right after the war, the ones that were still alive, and they said it was perfectly fine. Acoustics were great. Then how come now it's like this? Well, yeah, they built the LRT. Taft Avenue isn't the same as it used to be right after the war. You had a, and you decided to put an air conditioner. So you closed all your windows now. So the sound could not go out. So now you enclose, the sound is inside the chapel and reverberating back and forth.
All right. Sige. So let's take that first. Yung ako, if you've got a cathedral or a chapel, they can obviously hire a Martin Galan. So let's go down to the barrio, to the municipio na, I mean, those that don't have,
how many people are you looking at?
I don't know. Let's talk about a fairly small church siguro. Let's say 100, 200. Oh, ganun.
Okay, 100. It wouldn't be that reverberant by nature. So if it's in the province, so it's probably open. There's no aircon, so sound will go out. So it won't be that reverberant. So it's going to be easier for the priest to communicate. See?
Okay.
It gets tricky when the structures become complex.
Complex, meaning to say
you have multiple materials, you have air conditioning, you have all these designs.
Pero yung simple lang na
lang na nipahat or sawali or kahoy, tapos they're just haligid, it's fine. It will work.
Okay.
And it's not that big. Actually, if 100 people, you don't need much of a sound system.
Okay. Here's the question then. Minsan, diba, there are some churches that are iba-iba yung height eh. There are some are low ceiling, and some have, want to be, again, to use your word, glorious.
Yeah.
So if you've got what is better for sound?
Okay, what are again, you have to qualify. Church music, or spoken word?
I'd say at this point, obviously siguro let's go spoken word kasi yun yung mas importante, di ba? Marinig mo yung pare.
This happened. The spoken word started becoming important during the Reformation era. And look where these Protestants were holding their worships, not in big churches, more town halls, small halls. So the word was more effective because the reverberation time was lower, meaning less ugong. You want speech that for speech, you want a low reverberation time. Meaning, if you're singing through karaoke, patayin mo yung echo.
But that is so counterintuitive kasi ang Pilipino gusto ng echo to death,
Mas
di ba?
lalo hindi ka maintindihan.
Okay. Yan ha. So, yung echo, bawasan. So, ito nabanggit mo yung term yan ha. Reverberation and then tumungo tayo doon sa echo. Ano yung mga konseptong yan? What are those things? Or are they the same?
Okay. Well, there's this, in the Philippines kasi naging one-stop shop na yung echo. Basta, ma-echo yan. Ma-echo siya. So every form of reverberation is an echo. But you have to anything before an echo is basically hello, hello, hello. While reverberations are hello. Okay. So yun.
Okay.
Let's just basically, these are all simple stuff. Huh? This is not, I'm just simplifying everything.
Siyempre, I mean, then that's what you want because, di ba,
Okay.
simple din naman yung audience tayo. I'm learning a lot right now as we speak.
I'm simplifying everything. So that's why reverberation is what we have to deal with because it piles up. That's why yung Gregorian chant, they will go dararan, then wait for the reverberation to drop. Then dararan, reverberation to drop. Dararan, reverberation. So they metered it to adapt to the place of worship na maiintindihan.
Sige, so we've again, let me just back it up a bit. So we've discussed now that in short, we've so far been discussing the environment, our context, where we are. So again, I think bottom line is one, deaden the sound coming in from outside, the external, yung ambient noise or, di ba? Yung ambient noise, that's what it is. Kung ano yung nasa paligid mo, na ingay. Right. Make sure you're able to minimize it, and that is getting rid of it altogether through traffic laws or implementation of laws, traffic laws, or B, talagang putting in some interventions tulad ng bato or haligi, in short, massive things so that the noises from outside won't come in. And you want those noises as close as possible to the church na, if it's a relatively large space, from the street to the actual. Is that am I getting it right or hindi naman?
Actually, if you pass through some of the highways, you'll see like walls already. Yung mga big look, just pass through EDSA. If you go through the high ends, the Makati subdivisions, you have these massive walls. That's what they did.
Okay. So in short,
they just built walls and you can't see the houses.
But it's also because they want to shut out the sound.
Yeah, that's basically it. Because tell me, can you go to sleep if EDSA's right beside you at night?
Nope. Definitely not. All right.
Metro Manila is 10 dB louder than any average first world country. 10 dB. One click of the volume is 3 dB. So you can imagine 10 dB.
That's 3 clicks in one go.
Yeah, a
At
little bit
least.
more than at least 3 clicks in your TV.
My God.
That's how loud Metro Manila is.
And we're not even talking about the karaoke in the
So
streets.
I'm just these are very loose these are very
Yeah,
loose
yeah.
examples. So just to give you an idea.
Maingay na talaga tayo. And
Oh my-
you mean that not just
It's
as
very hard to
people.
control already.
All
Very
right.
hard to control.
Okay. Sige, okay. So nandun na tayo. So okay, hopefully we've taken note of that. So try to minimize stuff from outside, and then inside naman, ayun, that's where our the design of the place comes in. So
Yes.
generally, the smaller you are, mas
The better.
maswerte ka
Oo.
because there's not too many elements that will bounce
Yeah, and the
sound.
reverberation will be lower, yeah. The
Okay.
reverberation will be lower.
As
Just because of volume.
As your church becomes bigger, that's when you start having problems. So sige,
Correct.
let's go there first lang. Okay, and by bigger, let's qualify to say, over 200 people. Ganun na ba yung kalaki na yan?
Well,
Or
that's like a small movie house.
all right.
Wow. Diba? Yung mga director's cut. Yung mga,
Okay,
and
all right.
ganun, diba? So, ganun yan. No? So, just think of if you want spoken word to be efficient, think of that movie house.
Okay. All right.
Pero
Now,
patay na patay yung tunog niyan. Your
Oo.
music will sound really lousy.
okay, hang on. Talking about a small place pero then passing through. From an acoustic guy's perspective, what do you think of UP, itong Church of the Holy Sacrifice? Because that's an open.
See, because that's why. See,
Uh,
you have enough. That's Lindy Loxin,
yes.
one of the few architects that was aware of acoustics from the very beginning.
Sige nga, let's use it as an example. Sige. Acoustics at UP. One, many doors, in short, labas-pasok ang sound. Is that good?
That's a way of controlling reverberation. Because the sound will just go out and not bounce inside. You have curves in the walls. So that's diffusive. Okay, you have reverberation. Imagine yourself in a hall of mirrors. In the world, you have 2 mirrors, you put it in front of each other. The image is infinite, almost infinite.
Mm-hmm.
You have 2 hard surfaces, you make it sound, you have 2 parallel walls. The sound will just keep on bouncing and bouncing and bouncing like those images.
Okay. So yan ang iniiwasan mo.
Mm.
That's what gets people to complain, di ba?
Yeah.
Hindi maintindihan si Father, and it's probably not Father's fault, simply because the sound is bouncing back.
Yeah, it's bouncing all over the place. So that's what I told you again. The first time I explained what sound looks like, and you throw that pebble in the water in the middle of the lake, and you will see the waves going out. But it's 360 degrees. It is my job that in my mind, I see the room, I can see those waves going back and forth already. I would always tell my students before, if you cannot see sound, you have no business in this business.
Wow. You've got to be able to see sound. Well, fascinating. That's a philosophical
No, it's not
piece of advice.
I have a friend that can see how electricity goes through a circuit and how it manifests itself. That I cannot do.
Oh, sige. All right. Sige.
Kanya.
Okay. Sige, so you've established na, tama nga pala si Mr. Galan. Mukhang it's bouncing back. Siguro our place is a bit big and then masyadong element. Siguro masyadong maraming nakakalat na yung mga ibahe, yung mga statwa, or maraming
the
mga
imahes and the statuas help.
Okay. Ano yung what is because they absorb
They're
the sound.
all curved. No, they're all curved.
Because they're curved.
So they diffuse. There's absorption and diffusion naman.
So dapat pala maraming ibahe doon.
Look at the old churches, especially Renaissance, Baroque. You have all these moldings, you have all these capitals, that na maburloloy lahat. Kaya maganda yung tunog kasi maburloloy.
Oo nga, no? So,
now, modern na naman, you have these modern churches.
These minimalist,
walls,
very,
minimalist,
very square lang. Basta, ayun, patay. Okay. So yun ang papabor. Okay, so when you say na masama ang tunog, generally ang one of the things that is not expressed lang siguro because sabi mo nga na one of the most abused words is echo. Diba? Everything is blamed on echo. So in a sense, your take on it as a sound guy is that ang maraming reklamo ng mga tao really relates to itong reverberation, bouncing back of sounds. So, one of the things that can be done, if I'm interpreting you right, is really put in different shaped, curved shaped, iba-iba, so that curves.
It's shapes. And then shapes. Again, remember the hand doing that.
Okay, so these are the principles. So yan ang mga prinsipyo. Okay.
Same thing. It's just a big, ginawa mo lang yung room, yung kamay mo, para marinig ka.
Okay. All right. So yun yung mga nakakatulong, yung mga ganyan. So in short, pagka hindi ka pwedeng feeling minimalist sa isang simbahan kasi talagang from the sound perspective, it'll keep bouncing back and that will cause. Okay, I've got this might be a stupid question, but hypothetically, you spend ₱1 million and have so much, you spend on all of these high-tech machinery and all of that. But can you still have a lousy sound with great equipment and even, let's say, a great guy behind it, great engineer? Can you still have lousy sound if your surfaces are not managed?
Definitely, yeah. Well, I always, almost from day one, I always tell clients, no matter how much you spend, if you put your expensive sound system inside the cave, it will still sound like you're inside the cave. Yun lang yun.
I just love the way that you put that. So even if your most expensive sound system is in a cave, it'll still sound like you're inside. Yeah.
This is Undercovered, the podcast with Bing Kimpo.
Particularly for those who will be on a shoestring budget and who are tempted right now because there are so many of these speakers and mics that are being sold for unbelievable prices. Sobrang baba na yun. Never before, huh?
Okay. You start again. What is a sound system?
Yes.
The simplest sound system. So the purpose of a sound system is to assist something to be heard in a further place. Where, like, for example, my voice will only reach those 20 people, but will not reach that 100th person in the back of the room. So it has to assist me so that that person that's in the back of the room can hear the same way the guy in the front pew hears me. That's it. The guy in the back row the back pew should have the same experience, should hear the same thing from the priest as the guy in the front row. That's the goal of a sound system. So,
okay.
So the coverage, hindi siya dapat sumapaw.
Okay.
Okay, ayan.
So, ano mga sige, so if that's the intent. Okay, so what are some of the so we're starting on principles right now. So what are some of the must remember muna?
Okay. Oh, before anything else, what's the simplest form of sound system? I always use this example. You remember the megaphone?
We're talking
Bullhorn.
about bullhorn. Yeah,
The
yeah,
bullhorn.
yes.
That's the simplest sound system. You have a mic, which you speak into, converts your voice into an electrical system, a signal. Then you have your amplifier inside that amplifies the speaker in the bullhorn. That's your sound system. And every sound system, whether that 500 peso, God knows where you bought bullhorn from, is no different to your multi-million peso sound system that you just installed in this church. That's the same thing. Everything else is just garnishing. Kumbaga, yun yung atsara, yun yung kamatis, yun yung ano. Pero yung kanin saka yung ulam, yun na yun.
Okay. O, sige. So, kung gano'n tayo gano'n natin i-approach yan, ano ang mga must. So, number one, trabaho niya is to make sure that yung naririnig in the front pew is also the same thing naririnig ng tao sa likod. Okay. So, pag sinasabi kasi natin sound system, ang automatic na sa isip ng tao is microphone.
Tama.
Speakers.
Yes, that's the end.
Okay.
And in between is the amplifier.
Oo, that drives everything. Yun
Yeah.
yung ano. Okay. Sige, so magsimula siguro muna tayo sa ito na lang, yung mics muna.
Oo.
Paano dapat i-mic? Anong muna dapat yung...
Oh, that will take a long time.
Oh, sige.
Ang microphones is I can spend days and weeks talking about microphones, or even just one microphone on how to use it properly. Okay. Again, you go to a professional. You know, when we design systems, we actually require the supplier to hold classes to teach operation and proper mic technique. Because that's where the failure is. Sadly, there's no school in the Philippines for audio. So everybody learns it. It's autodidacts or naturuan lang ng hindi naturuan. So it gets worse and worse and worse and worse, diba?
YTU, YouTube University.
Oh, it's even worse because you may get the knowledge, but you don't. You may get the information, but you don't have the knowledge because nobody slapped your hand because hindi ganito.
Okay. So, sige. So, ano yung I guess in nandun na tayo sa yung prinsipyo. Pero ano yung magiging guide? So what should the parish pastoral council or the priest be thinking of muna when he gets into this discussion na kailangan palitan yung sound system?
Okay, find out first why do you want to change it? Was there a time that it worked well? Okay, because as you said, it may be the operator. Okay, and but there are many instances where a church had a service. It was going to be broadcast live. The sound tech from a TV station na mas marunong ang umupo sa board, biglang gumanda. Or dumating yung Pope, dala niya yung kanyang sound engineer. Everything worked.
Or it could also be, Martin, na malaking misa, with so many people in attendance, kunyari, so much absorptive capacity.
Exactly. That's where
gumanda.
That's where the technician, the sound guy comes in. That's where the sound guy comes in, because you can even if you spend millions and millions and millions on your sound system, It's like buying a supercar, a Ferrari, or a Lamborghini, and then you don't want to invest on a driver who has the skill to maximize that car. You are happy with your jardinero to drive the car. That's where the failure will come in. That's another point of failure, which I see. My experience, the many years that we've been in business, is most of it not just churches. Why? Even institutions, even TV stations don't want to invest too much on educating kasi magiging sound once they get hired abroad. Nasa cruise ship na. Nasa ano na. Kung saan na nakuha kasi magaling, natuto na.
Yeah.
But then it's a vicious cycle. First of all, when you budget your sound system, budget to pay for the guy who's going to operate it. Because you're never going to keep him.
Alam mo kasi, Martin, I think also the thinking of many people right now is, kasi, mura na naman these days ang kaya everybody can also operate it. The guy who is, ikaw, magaling ka sa magaling ka sa online. Magaling ka gumawa ng Facebook. Kaya ikaw na rin. Di ba?
You become an expert by estoppel. Kasi wala nang iba. Di ba? O si ano na lang yan. Kasi may chamba. Di ba? It's different. Again, if you do not see sound, you have no business in this business. Okay. Again, you see, yung maraming tao is very different from a weekday mass compared to a Sunday mass. How do you treat that now?
Oh, okay.
Just a concert. You watch a popular concert, magagaling na yung mga technician dyan. Pero the first 3 songs are usually not that nice in terms of sound. Did you notice that?
Kasi kinakapapa nila yung
Kasi sa sound check walang tao, biglang may sound check, may tao, sa show may tao na.
Kaya meron kang front act.
That's another story. Diba? So, yun. The energy is different. There. So, very, very important yung sound guy.
Martin, ito particularly in the Philippines where we tend to have medyo extreme tayo ng weather changes. Meron tayong panahon ng malamig. Relatively malamig, and then bigla lang may mainit ka. So, then of course, ulan. Ulan is external source yan, di ba? When you've got ulan, you're done. No matter what you do, you're done. Wala na talaga yan, di ba? Kung malakas ang ulan.
That's what I told you. Sound coming from outside. You have to treat your roof.
Yeah. Okay. Now, in itong naman, between a December, does sound change? Does the experience of sound, does it change from a December night to a May afternoon?
The temperature, a few degrees won't matter that much. Again, speed of sound is relative to temperature. So whether it's colder or hotter, but it's more I really believe it's affected more outdoors. Okay. Indoors, since it's really just hot or just cool, and it's constant. But outdoors, you have cool air up there and hot air down here, so sound will bounce off different ways.
Okay. Etong mga electric fan, lalo na right now we're seeing all of these huge electric fans in the middle and aircon. How, syempre, those are needed by for the comfort of the people, but how do you manage the presence of these things from a sound perspective naman?
Okay, that's why again you have to be quiet, no? So you're as quiet as possible. So in the beginning pa lang, design pa lang ng church, you already have to take into how to make these things quiet. Again, like La Salle, the main chapel, they put air conditioning. So the reverberation went up and the noise level went up. So they needed to put a stronger sound system. Kasi you're competing na eh. It's like being in a food court, di ba? Na puno ng tao. You're shouting at each other already. Because you have to be louder than the next guy beside you.
Okay. All right. So kailangan bumawi ka talaga. Now, what do you call this? Paano naman yung ito, we're seeing a lot of this dahil syempre, marami dyan will be choirs. How do you any things, any principles to remember?
Well, it's basically positioning. And how good is your choir? Is it just your school choir? Little kids with little voices? Or is madrigal singers or whatever, I mean, who are you putting there? Who are you anticipating? So you design for that. That's why it's always important, and we always do this before we start on a project. We always call the end users and the people and the stakeholders, and we hold a workshop.
Mm-mm. Okay. So in short, I guess what you're saying right now is that, look, there is no hard and fast rule for sound system. What you always have to look at is really context, meaning to say, saan yung lugar mo, and then at the same time, aning ambient noise, aning surroundings niya, and then work on that. Yeah. Secondly, sa loob naman, there's a number of factors, di ba? So pwede mong ma-diffuse ng konti kung wala masyadong tao. So get curved objects. Kahit sinasabi mo at the risk of sounding sacrilegious. At the risk of sounding or at the risk of sounding sacrilegious, maglagay ka ng mga santo na marami dyan. Kasi di ba? Curved yun. Or flat yung mga ano yun? What do you call this? Collection boxes, for example, di ba? Parang gano'n just to capture or to absorb sound at different points. Diffuse the sound, yun.
Then the best thing is you call all of them dito na tayo sa unahan.
Okay. Kaya pala yun.
To reach all the way there, just come up front,
Okay. Pero bottom line is plan for what the occasion is, because iba yung, as you say, hindi masyadong matraffic na weekday mass. Pag yan, smaller yan. Kaya pala, Martin, yung sa iba, di ba? Pag lalo yung mga cathedral types, yung mga medyo malalaki, kahit sa probinsya, yung mga malalaking pagka weekday, doon na lang sa side, di ba? Yung side na side chapel. Doon na lang. Kasi masyadong pangit yung magiging tunog, apart from magastos sa kuryente, magiging pangit yung tunog kung yung big church yung gagamitin.
Yeah, there.
Okay. All right. So again, plan for it. So ibig sabihin, the way that you're planning for other things, plan for sound as well.
Yep.
Kasi if you plan for sound, the expense on the sound system or the equipment, what have you, that will follow.
Yep.
Because in a sense, I mean, not to oversimplify things, pero kumbaga, an amp is an amp, a mic is a mic.
Yeah.
Diba?
Yeah.
They have the same thing, whether it's that whether it's again your 500 peso na megaphone. Diba? Ganun din 'yon. Diba? So again, alamin mo. And then, kaya nga kasi ang dami factors, di ba? Pagka kunyari, kasi minsan nagtataka ka na napakaingay na, the sound is bouncing back and forth pagka kami lang weekday mass. Pero nung dumating si Bishop, dala-dala ang daming tao nagpuntahan.
Di marinig si Bishop.
Hindi. Una-una, parang walang echo, walang bounce back na ngayon, ha?
Tama. And then another thing I noticed also, very difficult with the average Pinoy churchgoer. I don't know there are two ways of listening kasi to the spoken word. Do they want find out what type of worshipers go? Do they want God speaking to them, the big booming, or do they want an intimate conversation, personal conversation?
So even
Diba,
even
ang hina eh. Gusto nila talagang parang God's there. It's just overpowering me. Can't say anything anymore. You know?
Actually, Martin, di ba? Same thing. Kung si Father medyo maliit yung boses, di ba? Then, the amplification should work harder.
Yes.
Papabor sa kanya.
Yeah.
Pero
So
kung...
that's why you have to take those things into account. And then you design for that na naririnig naman eh. But then you see, you can't make it too loud because you're going to affect the acoustics already if you make it too loud.
Okay. So, hindi lang siya, again, what we're learning right now, siguro we're getting to this conversation because people think that because equipment tends to be more widely available now than it did, a few years ago, na bili ka na ng bili and that will solve things magically. You can throw money after, you can throw money at this, it won't solve it because really, diba, there are certain principles pa lang that you have to understand and you have to design.
Right. That's why people like me have a business.
Well,
because if
yeah,
anyone
of
could do
course.
it, we wouldn't need, no one needs us.
Oh, pero yun, I guess the point is people have to do it in the first place to really think about doing it in the first place. Na you have to consider that there is a that thought has to be put into a sound system, and that you just can't assign, the hardinero or whoever.
Yeah, that's it. Or or the guy who mahilig sa sounds. O siya na lang, siya na bahala.
Oh, I've also again. Oh, yung organista kasi total music naman yan eh. Kaya siya na rin.
So not to put those guys down, no? It's just that the responsibility is really great. It's I don't know if you read this book, came out in the early 70s, called Peter Principle. Really good guy, but then when you bring him up higher, he loses his competence already. So when you're asking him to do more than what he could at already.
Well, I'll approach it also from the fact that, what we're really going to church for is really the content, diba? What is said, what is sung, and that means that, what people are saying there, the priests, the choir, the readers, that is really of importance.
Yeah.
Hence, you just cannot say na, sige, bahala ka na dyan ha. Kasi kahit gaano kagaling si Father or yung reader.
Oh. And then some people are...
Diba? Kung hindi siya maintindihan because of the sound.
Or even just diction. Because he came from another country and it's not his native, English is not his native tongue. Yung punto niya. Patay ka na.
Oo. Actually, yun na nga din, Father, no? Kasi Father tuloy, Martin. Kasi again, there are some lalo lang yun, we tend to be a training ground as well for foreign priests.
Yeah.
So there are some languages that are just mas guttural sila. So that is mas mababa sa mga lower registers yun, di ba? So you also have to then yung sa timpla, may ano yan.
That's it. Boils down again to the guy behind the board.
Yeah. Oh.
How can he adapt to that? You have your multi-million sound system again. It's just a tool. It's still the guy who handles the tool.
Yeah. And then especially right now, no, one of the things which nadagdag sa job description ng mga tao ngayon in the technical booth ng simbahan is that whereas before they only had to be live sound people, now they also have to be streaming sound. They also have to be conscious of that, di ba? how is this? How is what is being experienced by people inside the place of worship, inside the church? How is that also being experienced by those that are listening to it online?
Mixing for online is very different from mixing live.
Oo.
Diba?
Oo.
Kasi anong pinapakinggan mo? Sa simbahan mo, sabihin natin, sa a big, nice church with a nice sound system, has big speakers.
Yeah.
Okay? And good amplifiers, good microphones. Okay. Suddenly, you're watching TV, you have this 3-inch speaker that's built into your TV set.
Oo. Talaga.
Anong tunog nun?
Siyempre.
Diba? Normally, what we would do before, when I was with the Dawn, I would have 2 separate mixes. One for, like, we had a live radio broadcast, so we had a different mixing board for the live show, and then a feed to another guy who's mixing for radio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because those are 2 separate audiences.
Kaya nga. Kasi yung radio mo nasa kotse. Anong laban ng speaker ng kotse to a concert system?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because things will sound off. The bass would be weak, would be too strong in the car, because it can't handle those frequencies. So the guy handling it. So it's just very complex. It's very complex.
So I guess bottom line for this afternoon's conversation, takeaway natin, Martin, is this. There are so many factors, external factors, external to your church,
Yeah.
internal to the church, within the church.
Yes.
And therefore, because those are 2 separate factors, yes, you can introduce interventions, mean say put in, itong gaya ng solid blocks, or putting in, different, say, plants or whatever, diba, to dull the sound or diffuse the sound. Pero ultimately, that's the environmental. That's the environmental, no. Pero when you put in already your equipment, you've really got to plan with the end in mind, being say, how is that sound going to be experienced by people? What is the environment going to be like? Means say, puno ba yan? What's going to happen before the mass?
Yeah.
Before the mass itself, what's that mass going to be like? And then, when you do that already, you've got to be able to plan for it and make sure that the guy behind everything, the guy or the girl behind everything, is able to react to a situation in the same way that you've got the guy in a concert
There you go.
also reacting to everything that's happening.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so
sad to say, the mass is pretty close to a show.
it is. I mean, let's not get sacrilegious, but it is. It is, because the elements are there.
Yeah. So you have the music, you have the word. It's like, so the guy, very important yung person behind the sound system. And it also,
and planning for it.
Yeah. Well, from day one, once you get an architect, involve an acoustic designer or consultant already. Day one pa lang. Don't look at it as an afterthought. Don't spend on everything and then later on, nakalimutan natin yung sound system.
Oh, I've heard so many horror stories of that, even among the bigger venues, huh? Nah.
Yeah. So merong ganon, no? Merong ganon. So it's being very conscious. And then also another thing, what I noticed, whenever in our big projects, we usually do studies, acoustic studies, and there's always a report. Again, case in point, LaSalle. We worked with an American brother who used to be the dean of engineering in LaSalle. And we submitted the report and he reviewed it before we actually started the project. At the end of the project, he said, Martin, I'm going to put this in the library. So everybody who will come after us knows what was done and what needs to be done. LaSalle does not have to spend on a study anymore because you did it na. So they will know why you did it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mean to say,
So the poor guy, brother, died after 7-8 years. I heard that somebody else was doing something, and then I said, may report yan dyan. Didn't you bother looking in the library to be guided at least? You didn't have to, wala na, andyan na yun. You don't have to call us. Basahin mo lang yan.
Yeah. I guess, because the word is so important, that's, but central yan to the religion, the word. And the word has to be spoken. Then
before there was light, there was the word.
Yes. And since that has to be spoken and that has to be delivered, then you better, if not spend money, spend time at least thinking about it. So yun ang pinaka bottom line talaga nitong usapan natin to.
Just be practical. Don't be swayed by too much sweet talk. See what works. When, of course, what works in one church will not work the same in another church.
Yeah. Kasi iba talaga yung context eh.
Oo, iba.
Martin, thank you very much for your time. Sobrang helpful.
No, I hope it gets out. I hope that I was able to share a little. This is just chapter 1 of any book on sound and acoustics. You're talking about 30 chapters more. So, it's not that easy. There are guys who have deeper knowledge than me, much deeper. So,
Mark, ganito na lang. Let me ask you this. If what to you is an example of a church? Let's start with a big one and then a smaller one that siguro gives a person, kung kunyari, diba, those who are still in a position that they can still or they still have some sway in how their own church will be designed. What would be good examples to visit that you've been to?
Okay. No, the first one that I'm really proud of is one we made. It's the one we made. We from day one, the architect had not even drawn a single line. He called us already. Credit to that architect. It's the Church of Saint Benedict in Santa Rosa. So it is beautiful architecturally. Sounds good.
Okay.
Even Cecil Licad has played piano there. And one of the few places he said, I will play here. Oh. Diba? Yun lang yun.
Yun na yun.
Yun lang yun.
All right. Mark, I cannot not ask you this since I've got you here already. Now, music and churches lang, no? We've seen rock bands or do these mga concerts inside churches. The old churches, old cathedrals in I'm not sure where it was, but they've been done on a number of occasions. What was it about these old places that lend themselves to these very interesting fusions, diba? Classical, an orchestra, and then at the same time, raunchy guitars and all of that. What is it about the old designs?
No, again, it's not the old design. It's the type of music that's being played. You said rock, but there's many kinds of rock. See, there's stadium rock, big, reverberant, dun, dun, dun. Again, it's not that. See, it's long, it's music for big environments. That's why you have your pang ultra, pang Araneta, pang Mall of Asia, na kanta. And you have pang club. Sounds great in a club, but what sounds great in a club will sound really lousy if you played it in a big venue.
Okay.
It's because that's it. Music, popular music adapted again to the places they were being played on.
All right. Martin, thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very
Sige.
much.
Undercovered. Because some stories just need to be told. Others told more. A few told more fully. Or perhaps in a different way. If not in another light. Welcome to Conversation about some of the stuff that's just undercovered.